On December 30th, 2022, the world of football tilted on its axis.
It wasn't a World Cup final or a Champions League miracle that caused the shift. It was a photograph. A photograph of arguably the greatest player to ever play the game, holding a yellow and blue jersey with the number 7 on the back. Cristiano Ronaldo to Al Nassr. At first, the world laughed. They called it a retirement tour. They called it a desperate grab for a final paycheck in a league that, to the average European fan, didn't exist. But what the world failed to realize was that Ronaldo wasn't the end of a story. He was the opening sentence of a 500-page manifesto. Within 6 months, the laughter turned to anxiety. Names like Karim Benzema, N'Golo Kante, Riyad Mahrez, and Neymar Jr. followed the trail of breadcrumbs, or rather the trail of billions, into the heart of the Arabian Peninsula. This is not just a story about football. It is a story about the intersection of unimaginable wealth, geopolitical strategy, and a kingdom's desperate race to rewrite its own future. Today, we go deep into the rise of Saudi investment in football. We'll look at the Public Investment Fund, the controversial sports washing debate, the ghost of the Chinese Super League, and the 2034 World Cup. Is this the death of the beautiful game or the birth of a new world order? To understand why a kingdom is spending billions on left backs and strikers, you have to understand Vision 2030. For decades, Saudi Arabia was defined by one thing: oil, black gold. It built cities in the sand and made the House of Saud one of the wealthiest families in human history. But oil is a finite resource, and the world is changing. Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, the de facto leader of the kingdom, knows that if Saudi Arabia doesn't diversify its economy, it faces irrelevance in the 21st century. Vision 2030 is the blueprint for this transformation. It aims to reduce Saudi Arabia's dependence on oil, diversify its economy, and develop public service sectors such as health, education, infrastructure, recreation, and tourism. But you can't just build a tourist destination and expect people to come. You need a brand. You need visibility. And there is no brand more global, no language more universal than football. The engine behind this is the PIF, the Public Investment Fund. This is the kingdom's sovereign wealth fund. It doesn't just invest in sports. It owns pieces of Uber, Newcastle United, Disney, and Nintendo. But in 2023, the PIF did something unprecedented in the sporting world. They nationalized the domestic league. In June 2023, the PIF took a 75% ownership stake in the 4 founding members of the Saudi Pro League: Al Ahly, Al Ittihad, Al Hilal, and Al Nassr. Imagine if the US government suddenly bought the Yankees, the Red Sox, the Dodgers, and the Cubs, and then gave them an unlimited credit card to buy players from the rest of the world. That is the scale of the disruption we are talking about. It wasn't just about buying talent. It was about creating a product that the world had to watch. The Saudi Pro League, or SPL, wasn't meant to be a hobby. It was meant to be a top 10 league globally by revenue and talent. Before the kingdom revolutionized its own league, it needed a laboratory. It needed a foothold in the most watched league in the world, the English Premier League. The 2021 takeover of Newcastle United was the precursor to everything we see today. For years, the deal was stalled by the Premier League due to concerns over state control and a high-profile piracy dispute with the Qatari broadcaster beIN Sports. But when the deal finally went through, it sent shockwaves through English football. Newcastle, a sleeping giant with a passionate fan base but a trophy cabinet gathering dust, suddenly became the richest club in the world, on paper at least. Critics cried foul. Human rights organizations, led by Amnesty International, warned that the club was being used as a tool for sports washing, a term used to describe a regime using sports to distract from its record on human rights, the treatment of women, and the murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. But on the streets of Tyneside, the narrative was different. Fans who had suffered under years of underinvestment didn't care where the money came from. They saw hope. They saw a chance to compete with the likes of Manchester City and Liverpool. The Saudi strategy at Newcastle was surprisingly disciplined. They didn't buy Neymar on day one. They bought a world-class manager in Eddie Howe and invested in the structure of the club. They proved they could be good citizens of the football world, at least on the pitch. This success gave the PIF the confidence to pivot back to Riyadh. If they could run a club in England, why not build an entire ecosystem at home? A fast-paced montage of transfer announcements. Each name pops up with a price tag. Ruben Neves, Kalidou Kante, Sadio Mane. If 2022 was the year of the Ronaldo earthquake, 2023 was the year of the flood. In previous decades, when leagues like the MLS or the Chinese Super League spent big, they targeted players in their mid-30s, players looking for a final sunset contract. Saudi Arabia changed the game by going after players in their prime. When Ruben Neves, the 26-year-old captain of Wolves and a target for Barcelona, signed for Al Hilal for $60 million, the scouts in Europe stopped laughing. This wasn't just about legends, it was about the middle class of European football. Let's look at the numbers. In the 2023 summer transfer window, Saudi clubs spent close to $900 million. Only the Premier League spent more. But it wasn't just the transfer fees, it was the wages. Reports suggested Karim Benzema was offered over $200 million a year. Neymar's contract reportedly included a private jet, a mansion with staff, and $500,000 for every social media post promoting Saudi Arabia. Why such staggering amounts? Because they have to pay the reputation tax. To convince a player to leave the prestige of the UEFA Champions League to a league that currently has low attendance and 110-degree heat, you have to offer more than just a raise. You have to offer generational wealth, the kind of money that secures a family's future for 100 years. European managers began to sound the alarm. Jurgen Klopp noted that the Saudi window stayed open longer than the European one, leaving clubs vulnerable to late raids. Pep Guardiola admitted that Saudi Arabia had changed the market. The old world of football, the European elite who had dictated the terms of the sport for a century, suddenly found themselves in a defensive crouch. We cannot talk about Saudi football without talking about the S word, sports washing. The term implies that the kingdom is using the glamour of the beautiful game to polish its international image and deflect from its record on human rights. Critics point to the 2023 execution of 81 men in a single day, the lack of LGBTQ+ rights, and the restrictive male guardianship laws that, while being loosened, still exist in various forms. The Saudi perspective, however, is framed differently. If you ask Saudi officials, they will tell you this is about sport loading. They argue that sports are a catalyst for social change within the country. They point to the fact that 70% of the Saudi population is under 35. These are young people who grew up on FIFA video games and Premier League broadcasts. They don't want to be isolated. They want to be part of the global culture. By bringing the world's best players to Riyadh and Jeddah, the government is providing entertainment and inspiration. Perhaps it is both, but one thing is certain. The kingdom is no longer concerned with the disapproval of Western media. They're playing a different game, one focused on the global South, Asia, and Africa, where the passion for football is high and the political critiques are often more muted. Every time a new league starts spending big, people point to the Chinese Super League. Between 2015 and 2017, China attempted a similar revolution. They bought Oscar, Hulk, and Tevez. President Xi Jinping declared his dream for China to win a World Cup. But by 2021, the league was in ruins. Clubs went bankrupt, players fled, and the bubble burst. So is Saudi Arabia just China 2.0? Most experts say no, and here's why. First, the source of funding. The Chinese revolution was fueled by private real estate developers who were encouraged by the government.
When the Chinese economy slowed and the government cracked down on debt, those developers lost their funding and the club